Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for coming again. First of all, the Coal LSL scheme. The Coal Long Service Leave Scheme was established specifically for the coal mining sector. Is that correct?
That's correct. Back in 1949, the Portable Long Service Leave Scheme was established.
Thank you. The objective of the scheme is to provide long service leave for employees in the coal mining sector. Is that correct?
For eligible employees who are defined under the Admin Act, yes.
Yep. The scheme provides the ability for employees to request to be paid extra amounts directly rather than contributing into the scheme. If they do this, it immediately becomes their money rather than going into the pooled fund of the Coal LSL. Is that correct?
You're referring to the clause on waiver agreements,
Yes.
Senator, I believe, and that is underpinned by a separate regulation. But yes, waiver agreements are enabled under the legislation.
Thank you. Coal LSL has a guidance note explaining how it calculates the levies on the eligible wages for coal employees. It provides two formulas, one for casual employees and one for permanent employees. Casual employees are required to pay the levy on all hours worked, whereas permanent employees contribute based on a maximum of 35 hours per week. Is that correct?
It's the employers who are paying, Senator, but 3B under the Payroll Levy Collection Act does outline how the different calculations are to be performed by the employer, and they are linked to the employee's employment classification, but the employer is paying that payroll levy.
So a casual employee, though, accept that. So a casual employee working the same weekly shifts as a permanent employee pays in more because they contribute on all hours worked, whereas a permanent pays no more than for 35 hours. Is that correct?
No, the employer is paying the levy,
Yes.
and it is a different calculation. So it is linked to different assessment of hours, that's correct, but the formula is different between the two classifications.
When it comes to accruing and taking long service leave, casuals and permanents are treated differently again. Permanents automatically get long service leave accrued for the maximum of 35 hours, regardless of the hours worked in that week, but the casual only gets it for the actual hours worked in a week. If the roster patterns of a casual don't fall neatly in a week, there is the potential for them to work the same shift pattern as a permanent employee, yet accrue less entitlement than a permanent on the same shift. Is that correct?
Correct in the sense we're relying on the hours reported for the employee's working week to inform the accrual calculation for the casual employee. That's correct.
So casual employees working in the coal mining sector can work the same weekly shifts as a permanent employee, but pay more in levies to Coal LSL through their employer and get a lower accrual of long service leave than a permanent employee. This is despite working the same shifts. They pay in more, their employer pays in more on their behalf, but they get less out of it. Is that a fair outcome?
I don't agree that the employer's paying more in that scenario, Senator, because they are very different formulas that are linked to the wages that are paid for each different employee. So I don't agree that that is as simple as the way it's been described. And I'd also say for the casual who is working the 35-hour week, they will accrue the same entitlement as the full-time equivalent. So if they are working the 35-hour week and the employer reports those hours, they'll accrue that full-time equivalent.
A lot of them are not working that 35-hour week if they're on production, they're on a roster.
We're relying on the hours and the working.
We've seen what happens with that, relying on employers' hours. This is in the past. This is all based on a Coal LSL guidance note which interprets the Act. Given the potential for such an inequitable outcome, is it possible that your interpretation is wrong?
No, I'm confident our interpretation's right. It's been through legal channels over the years, and that guidance note is verified. It has not been tested in a court as such, but it has been formulated based on legal interpretation.
When the coal, this is the last question on this thread, I've got some more on others. When the coal long service leave system was established for coal mine workers, do you think that it was intended to make one employee, through their employer, pay so much more and get less?
I don't agree that it's as simple as that, Senator.
Okay.
So
Right.
the intent of the scheme, going back to the intent of a long service leave scheme, is for the employee to access a benefit when they meet certain milestones. So I think the intent of the scheme is structured correctly, and that all workers should be able to access an equivalent entitlement when they meet the 8 years qualifying service milestone.
Okay. So moving on to another topic, do you ensure that casuals are made aware that they do not have to pay contributions paid to Coal LSL, and that they may be able to be paid the approximate 2% cash in hand? So they can elect to take the cash instead of having it accumulated.
My colleague will talk to the detail of the regs of the waiver agreement.
So, Peter Cambry, General Manager Legal at Coal LSL. Senator, there is information on our website in regard to the waiver agreements. I think it's important to point out that waiver agreements are only available for a small category of employees. So they're targeted. The intent of that is for people coming to either on high incomes or coming to the end of their over 55 that already have the 8 years qualifying service or have no qualifying service, to be able to redirect those contributions, as you say, to other forms of savings, whether that be superannuation, which is commonly what we see is the conversation that we have with people that are interested in that. So most people in the scheme can't apply.
But those who are eligible for the waiver, are they notified?
Well, they're not notified individually, but there is information in respect of.
So they're not notified. They have to go to a website which they might not know about.
Well, Senator, we don't know the ages of people necessarily who are in the fund.
No, but no employers do it either. Is that right?
I can't speak for what employers do, but
do you tell the employers that they need to do it?
Well, we don't instruct the employers to do it, but we certainly make it clear to employers that information in regard to aspects of the fund are contained on the website. There is information in regard to waiver agreements, but as I say, the waiver agreements, there's not many people in the fund, or a significant minority of people in the fund can actually apply for those.
From the research we've done into Coal LSL, it would seem that when an employer registers an employee with Coal LSL, that Coal LSL just asks for a name and a date of birth. Does this mean that because you do not take a tax file number, that you are not able to verify that people named are indeed real people, that they exist? What do you do to verify they are real people, and provide me with a summary of the last 3 occasions when this was done?
Sorry, the last 3 occasions we verified people.
When you verified someone was done, what was real?
My understanding of the process is when a new entrant comes. Firstly, I want to say we are not authorised to collect tax file numbers. That would mean amendments in the legislation. So it's not.
Has anyone raised that with the government?
It's been raised, but there's very few entities that can do that. So we don't collect tax file numbers at this point in time.
But you collect names and dates.
We collect names and dates of birth.
And you collect money.
And we collect money. Yes, we collect money. And we keep records of entitlements, but we write to those new entrants into the scheme at the time that they appear on it. So we get their addresses, we contact them, and we follow them up in regard to this is what we've been told, are these details correct, particularly in cases where there might be employers registering them in regard to historical service. So we say this is what the records we've been given, can you verify these are correct?
So let me continue then. Also from the research we have done, I was concerned to see reference to approximately $33 million in levy reimbursements made to entities with a statement beside it saying, quote, not readily available. This is a lot of money to have no detail attached to it. Can you explain what's happening? And I can give you a reference in the report given at last Senate estimates. The report was EEC-BE 20-82, pages 121 to 144, as you provided to me.
Senator, the further detail that we provided in that written response to the question on notice was to explain why that reference was associated to a number of the transactions. So in the Excel spreadsheet that we provided to you, which was data from July 17 to June 2020, had 5,594 lines, and there was 407 odd lines which had that category. The reason being we insourced our operations in 2017. So when we took over the administration from the previous administrator, that resulted in us implementing a new financial system. So all the records live in the administration system going back to day one. So all the historical records reside there, which is the employees' entitlements, the money in and the money out. And in our response to you, we said it would be an unreasonable diversion of resources to be able to extract that data because we're only migrating it to our new finance system from 2017, where we're able to readily access the data through reporting frameworks that had been established. So the period, the 3 months where we had that description, I think we explained in our response to the Quan was that migration stage, and all of the detail, I'll say migration hadn't been established, but I do assure you it all is residing in the administration system, but it would be unreasonable allocation of time and money to be able to put a reporting framework around that to extract that data as you requested.
So you don't know about it then? You don't know?
No, we do know about it.
But you know about it, but you don't know the identities?
No, we do. It lives in the administration system, and should we receive inquiries at a transactional level, we will investigate or access that transaction, but to pull thousands, hundreds of thousands of lines of records out of that system, establish the reporting framework to extract that in the time frame that was needed, it was an unreasonable allocation of resources to extract that, and we've provided you with the information that was readily available.
Thank you. I note from records provided that registered and unregistered employers make long service leave contributions, and then in some instances they claim the funds back. Yet I have seen no evidence whether these bulk refunds made by Coal LSL are linked to a list of employees, or that if employees are referred to, that they are real people. To me, this leaves open the question as to whether Coal LSL could leave themselves open to claims of potential money laundering. Do you ensure that the money laundering does not happen, and if so, how? How do you do it?
It would be highly unlikely for money laundering to be existing in the fund. For an employer to come into the scheme through a registration process, we verify their details through ASIC, ABN, and verify their banking details. So they're the source information that we rely on to ascertain that the employer, the entity, is a found entity. The employer would then need to have an employee in their records for years of service and paying a levy for that period in order to see that that employee meets the qualifying service provisions, and then ultimately access any reimbursement from the fund should that employee access their long service leave. So there are many hurdles that an employer would need to jump through over a very extended timeline in order to launder money through our fund.
So, just Senator Roberts, just looking at the time, we've got a minute left. So, you have one very quick question, or I'll have to ask you to put the rest on notice, please.
How many board members or members of the bodies they represent have been on either registered or unregistered companies that made contributions and or received reimbursements from Coal LSL? Could you please provide a list of them and the entity names and the dollar value of all the transactions?
The current directors?
Yes.
Senator?
Yes,
take
please.
that